All right, in this video, we're going to go over the study guide. Many of you worked in the study guide today, but in case you were absent or wanted a video or a refresher of what we did today in class, this is a good video for you to watch. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this first question. And this is 2x plus 4 multiplied by x minus 1 is equal to 0. So what we need to do here is we actually need to use our zero product property. Okay, and what the zero product property states is that if I have two factors, one of those factors must be equal to 0. So I'm going to take this first factor, 2x plus 4, set it equal to 0, and solve for x. So if I subtract 4 and subtract 4, 2x then equals negative 4. Divide by 2, x is equal to negative 2. So that would be my first answer, negative 2. Then I'm going to go ahead and take this x minus 1 factor, set it equal to 0, and solve for x. So all I have to do here is add to 1 both sides. So x is equal to a positive 1, and that's my second solution. All right. In this next example, this is something we need to solve by using the square root method. And the square root method is 10.3 notes, in case you want to look back at them. And what it states is that we have to isolate our squared term. Well, this x plus 2 squared is our squared term, so that means that we need to get rid of this 2. So in order to get rid of that 2, we are going to divide both sides by 2 before we do anything else. So we end up with x plus 2 squared is equal to 16. Then we're going to take the square root of both sides, and the square root of 16 is equal to a positive or a negative 4. So then I'm going to take that positive 4. Oh, and let me just mention that this square root actually cancels out that exponent of 2. So we end up with x plus 2 is equal to a positive 4 because of this positive sign over here. Then we subtract 2 and subtract 2, and we get x is equal to 2. So that's our first solution. Then we have to account for this negative 4 solution. So we're going to have x plus 2 is equal to negative 4. Subtract 2 and subtract 2. So x now is equal to negative 6. So negative 6 is our second solution. Okay, so that one, not too difficult as long as you know what to do with that coefficient of 2 first. All right, in this next example, what I'm going to suggest is that you think back to Module 9 and factor out a GCF first. If you factor out a GCF of 2, then you're left with x squared plus 10x plus 25, and that's equal to 0. So really, we don't have to worry about that 2 any longer, and now we can use x squared plus 10x plus 25 in our quadratic formula, or we can try to factor it. And so I'm going to show you both ways real quick. Now, if I'm looking at this, I'm going to try to factor that first. So what are two numbers that multiply to give me 25 and add together to give me 10? Well, that's 5 and 5. So I could factor this as x plus 5 and x plus 5 is equal to 0. Well, I have the same exact factor, so all I have to do is set x plus 5 equal to 0, subtract 5 and subtract 5, and x is equal to negative 5. So there ends up only being one solution, which is negative 5. Now, many students today in class wanted to do this with the quadratic formula, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that real quick. All right, and show you what it looks like with the quadratic formula. So here, my A is equal to 2, my B is equal to 20, and my C is equal to 50. Now, if I use the quadratic formula, that's going to be negative 20 plus or minus the square root of 20 squared minus 4 times 2 times 50 divided by 2 times 2. So the first thing I need to do here is simplify that radical, or what's underneath that radical. So I'm going to take out my calculator here, and I'm going to do 20 squared minus 4 multiply 2 multiply 50, and I get equals, and you'll notice I get 0. So I'm going to have negative 20 plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 4. Well, the square root of 0 becomes nothing. Remember, if we think back to our discriminant, that means that we just have one solution. So that one solution is going to be negative 20 divided by 4, which is equal to negative 5. So our one solution is negative 5. And you can either list it twice or just put this and write one solution. All right. Okay. Moving on to this next question, x squared plus 6x plus 17. My A is equal to 1. My B, I'm just going to erase that and put it in black just to be consistent. A is equal to 1. B is equal to 6. C is equal to 17. So I'm going to have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 17, all divided by 2 times 1. So again, I'm going to first simplify what's underneath my radical. So in my calculator, I'll move it over here to this side. I'm going to type in, clear it out, 6x squared minus 4 multiply 1 multiply 17 and hit equals, and I get negative 32. Anytime I end up with a negative discriminant like I did here, okay, so I'm going to rewrite this, negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 32 divided by 2. This right here is going to throw up red flags in my mind because this means there is no solution. Okay? If you, in your calculator, you tried to find the square root of negative 32 by pressing this button right here, you're going to get invalid, or on our calculators in class, you would get error. So that just means that this quadratic function has no solution. All right, moving on to question 5 on our study guide. We're going to use our quadratic formula. Okay, so my A is equal to 6, my B is equal to 4, my C is equal to a negative 15. So I'm going to have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 6 times a negative 15, all divided by 2 times 6. Again, the first thing I'm going to do is simplify what is underneath that radical. So 4 squared minus 4 multiply 6 multiply 15 negative, and I get, that's not right. Let's see if I did that right. 4 squared minus 4 multiply 6 multiply 15 negative, and I get 362. So this would become negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 362 divided by 12. Now I need to simplify this radical. So I'm going to take the square root of 362 and start to simplify it. Okay, so the easiest way to do that is to divide it by 2. Well, 362 divided by 2 is 181. I'm going to do this in my calculator in my desk because I feel like it's not 366. Okay. 4 squared minus 4 multiply 6 multiply 15 negative. It's 376. I don't know. That's why I don't like the 376. I don't like the computer calculator. I only like the calculator we use in class. So 376 is what we need to simplify. So 376, okay, clear. 376 divided by 2 is 188. 188 divided by 2 is 94. 94 divided by 2 is 47. So this radical can be simplified by doing the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 47. And because I have 2 of the same number, I take it out, it becomes 2. And what's left underneath the radical is this 94. So this can now be written as negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 2 square roots of 94 divided by 12. And then I'm going to simplify that whole thing by dividing negative 4, 2, and 12 by 2. So this will become negative 2, this will become 1, and this will become 6. So my final answer is negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 94 over 6. Oops. I'll make that box a little prettier. So I could write in my answers as either just leave it as that, or you could write negative 2 plus the square root of 94 over 6, and negative 2 minus the square root of 94 over 6. Because remember, we need to have both a positive and a negative. All right, last one. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you 2 different ways to solve this. Okay, we can either do the quadratic formula, if I can spell today, and then I'm going to show you completing the square. Okay, first I'm going to show you completing the square. So x squared plus 4x minus 9 is equal to 0. The first thing I need to do is move that 9 to the other side. So I'm going to end up with x squared I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay. So when I do that, I end up with x squared plus 4x plus a number is equal to 9, and I'm going to leave that blank. Well, the number that goes there is going to be b divided by 2 squared. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So then I get x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 13. And now what I've created here is a perfect square trinomial. So I can write that as x plus 2 squared and write that equal to 13. Because to factor this, it's always going to be x plus b divided by 2 squared. Then I can solve by square roots. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. That cancels out this radical. And I end up with x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 13. Then I'm going to subtract 2 and subtract 2. So x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 13. That's how I could get my answer. Now, if you don't like this, then you have to use quadratic formula. So let's go ahead and use the quadratic formula. And we're going to do a is equal to 1, b is equal to 4, c is equal to negative 9. So we're going to have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 9 divided by 2 times 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do this in my calculator at my desk so you can't see it. So I'm going to do 4x squared minus 4 multiply 1 multiply 9 negative, and I get 52. So this is going to become negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 52 divided by 2. Well, 52 can be simplified. So we're going to take that square root of 52 and simplify that into 2 and 26. And 26 can be simplified to 2 and 13. So the square root of 2 times 2 times 13 is going to be simplified to 2 square roots of 13. So negative 4 plus or minus 2 square roots of 13 divided by 2. And then I need to simplify my fraction. So if I divide that by 2, each term or coefficient by 2, divide that by 2, it'll be negative 2. Divide that by 2, it becomes 1, so essentially it disappears. Divide that by 2, and it becomes 1. So my final answer is negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 13. Now you'll notice that both methods resulted in the same answer. So my answer would be negative 2 plus the square root of 13 and negative 2 minus the square root of 13. All right, that is it for what you need to know for the study guide to be prepared for the test tomorrow. Good luck.